Take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy?
I'm a human being, god damn it! My life has value! It's time to ask yourself what you believe.
Mass murder, torture, perjury, embezzlement, fraud, deception, treason. These are just a few of your many crimes against humanity. You will not win this war, for you are fighting the very essence of humanity.
Hey, welcome to Truth or Talk. I'm April Bush.
And I'm Virstyne Henry.
You can check out our website at truthertalk.com, find our archive shows, our essays, and also we have a link there to support the Dortch family. We're going to be interviewing Kim Dortch today, and so she can talk about her family and what struggles they've gone on over the last couple of years with this police state, crazy stuff that's been happening to them and their family. Or, you know, it's just outrageous. I mean, you can hear their story on Red Ice. They were recently on there, and also on Gnostic Media. We have the links on our website. But we're going to interview her, and you hopefully can catch you up to speed on what's going on with her and her family. So it's just crazy sauce. I don't even know. I don't even know where to begin.
It's extra helping of crazy sauce. Well, yeah,
it's an extra helping of crazy sauce. It's just basically the police state.
Yeah. Encroaching. And it's interesting because I've heard her use word that they've been accused of doing, which is a sovereign citizen, and she was just basically saying how they're both diametrically opposed, because sovereign means that you're like a supreme ruler, right, or a monarch, or you possess supreme and ultimate power, and citizen means that you're like, you know, you're an inhabitant of a particular town or city. So it's like, it's just a kind of weird combo. But when I went online and I typed in sovereign citizen movement came on in Wikipedia, and I'm just going to read you the first few lines, and it says, the sovereign citizen movement is a loose grouping of American litigants, commentators, tax protesters, and financial scheme promoters. Self-described sovereign citizens take the position that they are answerable only to the particular interpretation of the common law and are not subject to any statutes or proceedings at the federal, state, or municipal levels, or that they do not recognize U.S. currency, and that they are free of any legal constraints. I'm like, that's not bad. Why is that like a bad thing? But it's worded, they're just saying a loose grouping of American litigants. It's very insulting. Like, it's such a bad thing. So basically, even Wikipedia says it's a bad thing for you to stand up for your rights. Fuck Wikipedia. We're going to do a show on them. I mean, I must say I do use Wikipedia as a source, but I'll almost always cross-reference. Because with Wikipedia, there's no room for anybody that has anything different to say about, that's not with the common stream of thought. If you are, you're crazy or something's wrong with you, and it's just, there's only one fact, there's only one truth, right? Not different opinions and different ways to look at things on Wikipedia. And, that's on the list to talk about that. But anyway, I'm also excited because we've started promoting State of Mind, which is a film by Free Mind Films. They also did A Noble Lie, and their upcoming movie is the it's called the mother crapper. It's called I had it on the tip of my tongue. I'm like, first it's called Fire. I think it's just give me a minute. Oh.
Well, you can go to freemindfilms.com, and then I think it's Shadow Ring. Is that the one?
Shadow Ring. Thank you.
Shadow Ring. Okay.
Shadow Ring. Sorry. Oh my God.
Yeah, no worries. We had Chris Emery on our show a few times, and he came on the first time after they did the documentary A Noble Lie, which is about the Oklahoma City bombing. That's just the quintessential documentary about that incident. I think everybody should see it. And then State of Mind, just about the psychology of mind control.
Both excellent films, and it's basically, I just want to just promote Shattering also just a little bit, but it's basically, it's a story of the Council on Foreign Relations and how the organization is the key to understanding how our world has become what we see today. And it's going to be narrated by Kevin Sorbo, who was Hercules.
Oh yeah,
Hercules. They got like Hercules in it. It's pretty cool.
Perfect.
Yeah, this would be good too because I don't. This is something I have some idea about, but I don't really know a lot about. But I think if you go on our website too, and you look at, it's on the right-hand side. There's a little banner, and you can click on it. You can see the banner for State of Mind, the trailer. And then, if you can rent it, you can click on it if you want to rent it. You should see the whole thing. It's really, really good. It's very, and I think it would add a lot to the understanding of how the police state is encroaching, how they're getting people to be a part of the system through mind control. Mm-hmm. And I know it sounds very science fiction, right? But it's like, I see it as a teacher with how the kids are. They get the kids, first they start them young. They have all of these kids that are into all of these violent video games, being in the military, guns, and they start to get them hooked in that way. And then when they get a little just older, then they start recruiting for the military, and they have all these fucking awesome. I'm not gonna lie, these commercials are awesome for the military. The music and just like if kids are technology buffs, it's basically you seduce them with adult toys, which are like, oh, you get to ride in helicopters and you get to travel to foreign lands and you get to save people and you get to like swim in the ocean and it's really cool and fun and so it's very it kind of adds another piece to the puzzle about how we're being controlled and manipulated in our society. And
Yeah, absolutely. So, yes, we hope everybody goes and checks that out. But we're going to cut to break because we're going to go a little long with Kim today and do a little longer than an hour because her story is just, there's so much detail to it. So we're going to go ahead and cut for a short break. And when we get back, we'll be talking to my friend Kim Dortch. So please stay with us.
All right.
I was on holiday with Sir Lawrence Olivier. We had decided that 9/11 was an intelligence operation. We'd all known about JFK, had so many mistresses. The CIA shot him. Castro could never have done it. It was clear we had become realists, conspiracy realists. How would we let everyone know was the question. We decided to buy T-shirts that told the contents of our hearts and minds to the world. We went to shop.truthattease.com. Even though the internet hadn't been invented at the time, we went to shop.truthattease.com. There we purchased Conspiracy Realist T-shirts, one of a kind, sold only at shop.truthattease.com. 100% cotton in men's and women's fitted sizes. I won't tell you which one I'm wearing.
Back to Truth or Talk. Thanks for hanging with us today. And on today's show, we have my very good friend, Kimberly Dortch. Kim is a nurse, a nutritional therapy practitioner, the wife of an optometrist, and the mother of two. Her son, Zach, who was 12 years old at the time, was arrested for graffiti vandalism, and their family has endured basically a police state nightmare ever since. So we have her on the show today to talk about it, and we hope that you all can help them out if you can. We'll save that to the end, but please welcome to the show Miss Kimberly Dortch. Hi, Kim.
Hi. Thank you so much, April and Virstyne, for having me on.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Well,
yeah.
It's our pleasure, and we wanted to have you on for a while, but I know it's been really hard, so now that you're coming out and you're finally able to kind of talk about it, and so we appreciate you taking your time to do that.
Okay.
And tell your story, so hopefully it'll help people.
I hope so. That is my goal. Grant you, I'm a mama bear whose den my cubs have been messed with, my partner has been messed with, and this mama bear is pretty upset. And
Yeah.
I am, my primary goal is to get us out of this mess and to help to heal my son who has PTSD from what has happened to him. The whole family does to some degree or another, but him being the youngest, he definitely has the, sequelae, so to speak, from this trauma beyond what the rest of us do. I'm going to try to do the Reader's Digest version of this story, and people who want to hear all the down and dirty details can go to the Red Ice Creations radio interview where I yapped on for over 2 hours.
Okay. Well, I recommend they do, because that was actually a really good show. So, yeah, so please start from going back to when Zach was first got into the clutches of the Marietta police.
Okay. So other than trying to, advocate, protect, and heal my own family, my goal is to educate people so that you can take steps to know what to do if and when this police state comes to your door. Because if we don't all collectively rise up against this militarized martial law machine that is materializing before our very eyes, this is not going to be a rare thing to be hearing someone like me talking about what their local police department has done to their family in bedroom suburban America or even within big metropolises. So to back up, I'm going to start by telling you on March 14 of 2013, my 12-year-old son was arrested with another boy right outside of our neighborhood. We don't live in Mayberry anymore, unfortunately, so the police officers did not bring Junior up to our door by the ear and say, hey, caught Junior doing something naughty in the neighborhood in which he lives. What are we going to do to make this right with the neighbors and with the community? That isn't how it works anymore. The way it works now is we basically don't have any rights to the product of our own wombs and our husband's loins, so to speak. And when my son was arrested, we were not called within the 1 hour that they're supposed to call you by law, their own laws, codes and statutes. So they first off violated that. They had our son for over an hour before they finally did call us. And let me tell you, we were out looking for him. My husband had woken me up. I had worked a 12-hour shift at the hospital. I had already gone to bed. Our son had been out in the garage working on a skateboard, which is nothing unusual. He's a night owl like his mom and dad. Our whole family is kind of wired that way. Dave went to check on him and could not find him. Well, he thought he had probably taken the skateboard out for a little test run. And so Dave got in the truck. He went around the block, around the neighborhood, couldn't find him, came home, finally decided he had to wake me up. We were trying to decide, do we start going up to, neighbor kids' doors at, 9:30, quarter to 10 at night? What do we do here? We kept looking, going up by the school that he went to, the elementary school, and we were literally about to walk up to the first neighbor kid's door to see if their child might be with our child and start trying to figure out, where are these boys and what do we do? Calling the cops was not a top priority on our list. We've not ever been that kind of family. Anyway, at exactly 11:11 p.m., my husband's cell phone rings, and it is Marietta PD saying that they have our son down at the station. We rush home because I had literally jumped in the car in my pajamas, and I threw some clothes on, and we went straight down to the police station, which was less than 3 miles from our house, and we were there by 11:30, 11:40 at night. We got let in by after hours. They released the door. We came into the lobby where we sat. And after a few minutes, we started pushing the button on the wall saying, hello, we're here. We would like to be present while our child is being questioned. We want to talk to someone. What is going on? We didn't even know why they had arrested our child. We knew nothing. They finally, after about 45 minutes, sent an officer out to talk to us. And that officer informed us that our 12-year-old son had, quote-unquote, waived his Miranda rights. Our child couldn't say Miranda, and when he did have to write an affidavit of the events that had gone on, he did misspell the words, so I was literally being literal. But what we were told when we asked to be present as his natural parents who have never had our parenting questioned before, we've never been arrested, we've not been part of a criminal family, so to speak, that's familiar with the criminal justice system. Not our family. My husband nor I, nor our children had ever been arrested in our entire lives. We had never had any contact with law enforcement other than a speeding ticket here or there throughout our lives. We were told that we could not be present while our child was questioned. So we asked to call an attorney, and we were denied that as well. And we were informed that our child is considered an adult in the eyes of the law, and not only that, they can suspend your parental rights with the whisk of the motion of their hand for up to 6 hours.
That's kidnapping.
It is.
That's kidnapping. That's what it is. I'm sorry.
Because as far as I'm concerned, I never willingly went into any kind of contract with the state of California, the federal government, my local county, nor my local city. And, contract law is pretty specific. All parties have to be completely aware of the contract they're going into. So whatever kind of thick game this is, that I've somehow consented that I'm in some kind of 3-way or 4-way parenting agreement with the state of California and the federal government, I absolutely do not consent to that. I never have, and I never will. So you better believe we were not happy with being told that our child was an adult, that we are all children of the state, infants and imbeciles in their view, and that they could and would do to our child whatever they wanted to for up to 6 hours. They finally released our son back to us, to our custody, at almost 2 o'clock in the morning. We were told that we would receive official charges in the mail regarding the behavior that our son had just unsurprisingly confessed to in full, scared out of his mind, not a streetwise child whatsoever. I mean, literally, our family has not even had a television in our house since he was 7 years old. So, as far as I know, unless he saw an episode of Cops online or at a neighbor's house, this is not a child that is streetwise in any way, shape, or form. And this is where I start my education piece. Parents must find out what your rights are according to these crazy laws that our legislators have written. What are your parental rights? What do you need to teach your child if they were to ever get in trouble or be accused of something, whether they did it or not? And I didn't do that. I did not teach my son that you never talk to cops. I didn't teach him as a 12-year-old child, if you ever get accused of anything, if you make a mistake while you're growing up, and I dare anybody out there in the listening audience and us 3 women ourselves who grew up on the face of this planet without ever having made a mistake in your childhood, that today could be misconstrued as something where CPS gets involved, juvenile halls get involved, the court system gets involved, and your life potentially can turn into a living nightmare as it has for us. 3 weeks or 2.5 weeks after our son was arrested and interrogated against our wishes, and we made those wishes known, we got official charges in the mail. They were all misdemeanor charges. We had a court date generated by those charges that we were supposed to be at the Southwest Judicial Center on April 22, 2013. My son's case was supposedly closed. We were now going to go through the process, through the courts, and try to figure out how to make remedy for what my son had done, since, we can't just have a discussion anymore. It's all turned into this big, giant system. So, 2 days before we were supposed to go to our first hearing, and we had hired an attorney who had been recommended by a police officer friend who had recommended us to an attorney. That one didn't any longer take cases in Riverside County, so she referred us to this lawyer that we hired, named Sharon Cosgrove here in Riverside County. She literally lives here in my community within, Marietta city limits. We had gone and sat down with her. She had rolled her eyes about the whole thing and how, overzealous Marietta PD is, and that, it isn't right that they treated our child that way down at the police station, yada, yada, yada. But this is, this is just going to go, no problem. Your child's never been in trouble before. They'll end up on probation. She, kind of just told us how the whole system was going to work. We trusted her. We paid her to represent our son in this juvenile court. This was not meant to be, because on the morning of April 20th, 2 days before we were due in court, Brendan Carney, who is supposedly a gang task force expert, had reopened my son's closed case and had gone before a judge, Elaine Johnson, and had said that he had received probable cause, quote unquote, from the city maintenance worker that our son had recommitted a graffiti crime. And this time, they trumped it up to be a felony level offense. And on this basis, this hearsay basis that the city maintenance worker had found more graffiti, well, let me tell you, if they found more graffiti, it had already been done prior to the night my son was arrested the first time, because he had been on house arrest with mom and dad to a level that, the state of California only wishes they could enforce. We did not let Zach even ride the bus from the time that this had happened, because he admitted to us that most of the time when he was doing graffiti in our neighborhood, he was doing it on the days that I was working a 12-hour shift at the hospital down in San Diego County, and those were the 2 days a week that he rode the bus home from school. He would get off of the bus, and on a major busy thoroughfare street, he would write in mainly washable Crayola marker on different electric boxes, the side of the post, the postal community boxes in neighborhoods. And to this immature, silly 11-and-a-half, 12-year-old mind, he equated it to being kind of like a living Facebook. He would write something, and other kids would write something, and, well, then the city maintenance crew would come along and cover it up and give him a clean slate to write on. As time went by, and my son met this boy in the neighborhood who was from a military family from Texas, this boy, who was huge for his age, he was only 13, but he looked more like 16. He was biracial. He claimed to my son that he had been part of a quote-unquote tagging crew when he lived in Texas. And these two boys together, my son and this other boy, they did kind of up the ante for the last few months of their adventures in quote-unquote crime. And they got a hold of some spray cans of paint, and they did some pretty ugly things on some of my neighbors' stucco fences and a brand new cedar fence, etc. This other boy, however, who had also confessed to doing all this, their home was not invaded military SWAT style on April 20th, which coincidentally is also National Marijuana Day. So some of what is really going on is speculation on our part, and we may or may not ever really know what the true motivation was for coming into our house on Saturday morning, the 20th of April 2013. But let me tell you, we do not believe that it really had anything to do with our son, who they refused to let our daughter wake him up that morning, and they sent 4 fully militarized, huge cops that look like they're pumping up steroids. One of them happened to be Mr. Temecula, 2012, who is apparently some sort of privately contracted mercenary, because when we sued all of these people for their excessive use of force against a 70-pound 12-year-old, no one will claim Michael Lassig. CHP won't claim him, Marietta PD won't claim him, Riverside County Sheriff won't claim him, and neither did any other agency that came through our house during what ended up being a 7.5 military-style occupation of our home on April 20th. They came into our house, and as if you even need a search warrant for a 12-year-old graffiti artist. I mean, this is where we need to just start talking right here. How is it okay in the so-called land of the free and home of the brave that any judge anywhere on this planet would agree with a cop that they need a search warrant to come into a home to do what? This child had already been interrogated for almost 4 hours in the middle of the night on the 14th of March, 5 full weeks prior. They knew where this child went to school. They knew where this child lived. If they thought he had committed another crime, why don't we live in a rational enough society that a police officer or two came to our house to talk to us, to sit down and say, hey, we think Zach is continuing to do this. But no, this is not how a militarized police state works. They go to a judge who gives them a broad sweeping search warrant in the name of finding, quote unquote, tagging and graffiti evidence on a 12-year-old who has already confessed that he had done this over an 18-month period, starting in the middle of 5th grade. He told them, I have done this in varying degrees, little, small, and in between. For 18 months, I've done it at least 80 to 90 times. That's a pretty full confession in my book. This child was scared. He is not a bad kid. He's not a criminal. He had never had behavioral problems at school. He had never even been to detention at school. This was not a problem child. This was a child who had been bullied endlessly in our neighborhood by kids living on our street who had multiple families living in each home. We had 2 homes on either side of us that had at least 15 to 16 people living in each of these houses. And I'm not faulting them for that with all of the banking sham scam that's gone on, and so many people have lost their homes. Lots of us are having to consolidate and live with our parents and, various situations to survive on this planet right now. I'm not criticizing that. But what I am criticizing is that my child, blonde-haired and blue-eyed, was a minority in his own neighborhood. And there were a lot of little wannabe gangbangers in our neighborhood. And they are who engaged my son in starting to do graffiti in the slide at the little park right in our neighborhood. So moving on from, just the level that I just can't understand how a judge, a female judge, which I bet you have kids, how do you become so insensitive to this entire system in which you are a cog in the wheel of, that you think it's okay to grant a broad sweeping search warrant for a 70-pound 12-year-old? It's unnecessary. That in and of itself was over the line. But we don't think they were really there for Zach. They didn't even go into Zach's room for probably 20 minutes plus once they invaded our home. They went straight into the master bedroom. I don't know about you guys, but 12-year-old boys typically would not ever hide any criminal evidence of anything they were doing in this world in their parents' bedroom. However, that's where the cops went first. My husband and I had our medical marijuana cards. We were growing our own medicinal plants and worm-composted soil. We had everything within the letter of the law. This upset the police very much, although had they done an ounce of investigation, they probably would have found our cards on file with the state of California and could have verified everything. Even in their police reports, they state that everything we had regarding that was completely to the letter of the law. However, that did not stop Don Weller, one of Marietta PD's finest, who writes their press releases, to bold-faced lie that they found a quote-unquote illegal grow in our house. But indeed, nobody has ever been charged with any charge resembling that. They've told many, many lies and falsified many, many documents, but that's a whole nother story. So they do finally go into Zach's room. 4 police officers wake him up, traumatize him literally out of his mind. They take our son downstairs and put him at the dining room table with my husband, my daughter, and her boyfriend, and they sit Zachary there. Mind you, my husband has now been asking to see this search warrant for over an hour and a half. For a full 3 hours, they refuse to even acknowledge that he is asking them to see a search warrant. When they finally do produce one, it isn't the actual search warrant. It just has a list of items and things that they can look through and look for. We did not receive an actual copy of the search warrant for many, many months after this whole nightmare started. So here comes one of the officers down the stairs with my son's tennis shoes. And my daughter says, "What are you doing with my brother's shoes?" And the officer says, "Well, he's going to need them. We're taking him back down to the station to question him further." So they lift our son. Here my husband is completely powerless to stop anything that they're doing. He is basically at this point already under arrest because they confiscate his cell phone. I'm not there. I had left for the day. This was divine intervention, let me tell you, because this little mama bear probably would have been in a jail cell by the end of the day as they were, re-arresting my child for the exact same crime he had sung like a canary about 5 weeks prior. They find 2 notebooks in his bedroom that have the same word written in them that he had kind of chosen as his moniker that he was placing on electrical boxes and blah, 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 blah. And this was grounds enough to take our child 5 weeks after he had confessed all of this and jail him. And they jailed him this time for 4 days at juvenile hall. Before I get into some of the stuff that they did to him at juvenile hall, I want to back up and finish the home invasion crime and tell your audience just the unprofessionalism of what the police force has become. These people literally wouldn't produce a warrant. They move my husband outside into the backyard. They handcuff him to one of our patio chairs where they leave him for 5 hours. They put my daughter and her boyfriend in the backyard as well. They did not handcuff them to the chairs, but they took their phones. They were arrested as well. They were not free to leave. They were not free to make a phone call. They were not free to do anything for the duration of this home invasion crime, which did last a total of 7.5 hours. When they weren't able to pin anything on us, and maybe their plan was to have a lovely 420 marijuana day headline in the paper that said, "Local optometrist found with illegal grow," and, make some big deal for 420. I don't know, because that didn't end up happening, because it was all legal. However, they were determined that they were going to find some other kind of crime in our house that day. And so the police literally manufactured one. They searched through everything from my lingerie drawer. They tore open a locked box that I had from way back from my bachelorette party. And my husband and I just celebrated our 25th anniversary last March. So we've been married for 25 years. We've been together. We've known each other since we were 17 and 18 years old. We're a stable family. We are professionals in our community. My husband has owned a business in this town since 2001 and employed anywhere from 8 to 12 people constantly since our business opened. We have one of the most successful practices in the Murrieta Temecula Valley, and we have been very proud of that. And I'll tell you, here we have never harmed another soul in our lives, but this police department and law enforcement in this county are determined to lynch us publicly, drag us through the mud, make up stuff about us, blatantly lie in newspapers and publications and press releases from the police department itself. So they look in our armoire in our bedroom, and in that armoire was a locked box that had not been opened in years, and in it was some legally purchased bark root powder. And there was a little bit of a concentrate of said legal bark. These guys only know about meth in this county, and that's what they get all of their grants and kickbacks for from the federal government, state government. So they brought in a meth-type task force that dressed in hazmat suits out in our front yard, causing, it must have looked like, I don't even know what. We heard from some of our neighbors that rumors were going around our neighborhood that the police found dead bodies in our backyard, that we had robbed a bank, and that they found food. I mean, you just can't even imagine the stories that got me. When you have a, suburban American home, that we had lived in that home at that point almost 15 years. We knew every single neighbor on our street. We had all bought our homes pretty much as they were being built back in the late 90s. So everybody was in shock. It was like, what in the world is going on over there? These cops, every kind of vehicle and van and this kind of task force. I mean, they called in gang task force. Then they call in narcotics task force. We've heard that different factions of at least 10 different agencies came through our house. So the cops, literally, they take this stuff out of this box, and they themselves, quote unquote, set up what they then say that they happened upon a clandestine mobile lab. And they set it up. They literally went on a scavenger hunt through our house. They took my scale from the kitchen that I measure out capsules for my nutritional therapy clients. They took items from the garage. They took items from the shed. They took items from the bathroom. And they set it all up and took pictures of it and said they had, quote unquote, stumbled upon a mobile clandestine lab. Then, after this 7.5-hour occupation, about the last 30 minutes, 2 officers from Riverside County Sheriff asked my husband if he will come in and just answer a few questions man to man, quote unquote, off the record. Mind you, Dave is so traumatized by this point. He's been chained to the patio furniture for over 5 hours. He's watched our son in holy terror be ripped out of our house and arrested for the same crime he had already confessed to. He's scared to death because our daughter is still a minor, that they could try to take her too, or arrest her boyfriend, who was also a minor at the time. So he agreed to come in and just, go, what is going on? How is it possible that you guys have even been here in this house for 7.5 hours almost? You took our son out less than 2 hours into this nightmare. What is going on here? And they proceed to say, well, we have found this stuff up here, and we think that this is a meth lab, even though in their own reports that come out later, they say they tested all kinds of substances in my house, and considering how many herbs and things I have, yeah, they had a lot of stuff to test. And their own reports say nothing tested positive for meth or any other substance that they could test for in the field.
They're like, Rosemary, oh no, test it. Like, right? Because they're just they're crazy.
Pretty much. This is what it boils down to. So, this is April 20, and we have hanging over our head for months and months on end the fact that they may or may not charge my husband with something. So they've sent off different samples to the Department of Justice, And we don't even know what have they taken, what have they sent, because, we get these police reports and we look at this list of things that they supposedly confiscated from our house, and none of the reports match. One of them says they took 24 items. Another thing says that they took only 16 items. Another report says something else. Then, as this thing progresses, and we countersue these people, and we take out, a lawsuit civilly, saying, look, you guys have your cart down there at the court running around. Not only are there no horses in front of the cart pulling it, they're not even behind it pushing it. They don't even exist. This is like some sort of motor car thing just running around willy-nilly, where you haven't even abided by your own codes and statutes. What you've done is completely illegal. You have violated our parental rights, our religious rights, our right to free speech, our right to be secure in our home and our effects, and on and on and on it goes. Well, we were having such a horrible experience with this attorney that we hired for our son, who now informs us that she does not work for Dave and I at all. She only works for Zach. And when we bring up the fact that he's 12 and he could not pay her the retainer that we paid her, she cares not. And she will do nothing that we ask her to do. We're asking her, once this home invasion crime takes place, we're like, how is this possible that this happens? How is it possible that they can arrest this child twice for the same thing when he already confessed to this? How can they get a search warrant when he's already confessed, and now they're trying to manufacture a crime against Daddy? How is this possible? She says, well, there's nothing I can do about it. I can't rebut anything. I can't ask any questions. You'll have to get a good lawyer on the back end to sue these bad cops. Well,
she can ask it because she does the guts,
Well, as we well know, most lawyers they're just officers of the court, and they can change from year to year whether they work for the prosecution or they work in the defense capacity. They're still officers of the court, and for most of them, they have no ethics, they have no morals, and they do not care as long as they perpetuate this system and they keep their cash cow going as a system at large and for their own finances. So we would even have Zach, since she said, we can't do anything. I don't work for you. I don't agree with anything you're saying or doing. I only represent your son. So we would say to Zach, hey, Zach, we really would like to file this paper to make remedy for what you actually did and do something that's moral and right here concerning this whole thing. And the judge that was over our case, he blocked us from doing that by saying that we could only file documents into the court if they went through the attorney of record for the case. So when we asked Zach, we said, okay, Zach, we want to file this document. You, as her client, since she's saying she can only represent you, you ask her to file this document for us. And then she would look at Zach and say, no, I will not represent you in this court the way your little 12-year-old self is asking me. I won't do it.
So she doesn't represent him either. It's like she's saying, I don't represent you guys, but I don't represent him at all either.
She represents the court. She is a corporate whore, and that's all she is. And, people have gotten on to me saying, better be careful, libel and slander. You know what? Nothing I'm saying about that woman isn't true. We asked her to file things. We asked her to represent our son in a specific way. This is a minor child. He is our responsibility. I don't care if they toot out 5,000 new laws up there in Sacramento and California that say, I am not his rightful mother, that the nanny state is his mama. I'm never going to acknowledge that as being true because it is immoral. It is wrong. And I will not abide by codes, statutes, laws, legality. I don't care what definition and term they give to it. That's not legitimate. It's against God's law. It's against morality. It's against our divine humanness. And I will not play their game the way they want it played. So they hate us.
Yeah,
they
right.
absolutely hate us.
Yeah.
And it's just why? I mean, it just seems so manufactured, and it's like they have to prove the necessity of their existence or something. So they're making up all these stories to just against your family with such vindication. You know, it's really disturbing, and you don't even get into all of it because, you know, of course, you say your son was arrested, but he actually did some jail time too. How many days was he in jail?
7 days total over this quote unquote crime that he admitted to in full the first night they arrested him. I don't know how much more truthful you can be.
And he cleaned it up, right?
Well, and when he and I said, oh my God, Zach, what if they go find more of this that they haven't found? Let's go out in the neighborhood. Let's go find everywhere you can possibly remember that you did this. Because I don't want them showing back up with SWAT team number 2 and saying that you did it 3 months, 6 months after the fact again. So we went out with a bottle of natural cleaner and some Mr. Clean sponges, and let me tell you, all but a couple of things came off with that. So, and the cleanup job that the so-called city maintenance department did is pathetic. This neighbor that had put up a brand new red cedar fence, my son and his buddy had spray painted a dark red word on the red cedar fence, so it totally wasn't the right color of red. It was ugly. It looked awful. But the city of Murrieta's fixed job on that was to make a big black square.
What? That's not bad. Oh, that's so tacky.
And they did the same thing on one of the neighbors' stucco fences. They just made it a big square and covered it up with a color that didn't even match the stucco.
That's graffiti, because you can get a cedar-colored paint that would match. You can get matching paint too. You can mix paint. Like it's not that's not rocket science. Oh my God.
And mind you, they're charging us $125 an hour for each so-called cleanup job, where they claim that they went and bought a new paintbrush, a new gallon of paint, new supplies for each individual, you know, whether it was washable Crayola marker that came off with the wipe of a Mr. Clean sponge, that was $125 to $200 and whatever dollars per incident. Yet, in their own evidence pictures, they show a 5-gallon bucket of paint from Home Depot. So you know that they are even frauding what they're calculating as the cleanup stuff. So that was one thing that we did that pissed them off. We asked for detailed accounting, canceled checks, receipts of what it actually cost to clean up our son's handiwork, because we made an offer to make remedy, to actually correct what our son had done in our community to make it right. Well, you're not allowed to do that anymore. The sheeple must wait to be told by the false authoritarians. This is how we're going to do it in our little cookie-cutter plan. You are not even being seen as an adult. You're all little imbecile children, and we will just exercise our administrative court over you in whatever way, shape, or form we wish, and you will not pass go. You will do exactly what we say and do not argue or ask a question.
You know, it's interesting because, you know, my personal experience of police abuse or brutality or bullying has always seemed to be racial. So experiences that happen with my family members and my, you know, these, and I'm talking about experiences that happen with my family members and friends of mine. So when you talked about the kid, I remember I listened to the Jan interview that he was like black Hispanic, and then but then when he mentioned his father was a gunner in the military, like they seem to have like loved that, right? And then it seems like the brotherhood of the police military, you know, I should say the brotherhood between the police and military unit seems to have trumped race. So I found that very interesting and eye-opening to me that there's something deeper than race going on, you know. And yeah, I mean, it's infuriating. I don't think it should happen to anybody, but
I'm having to sit here and I'm having to face the fact that I, as a mother, as a community member, as a member of the human race, I was complicit and complacent. I was busy raising kids. I was back in school. I was a nurse, working 12-hour shifts. Life is busy. All the excuses we all legitimately have.
Did you have any cases of police misconduct before this happened to you? Did you know anybody that had said that this has happened to them before?
Of course, I knew that this existed. I knew that people that are brown have been abused by the police for years. And if I have been complicit and complacent and neglectful and lived in any sense of willful ignorance to this issue, that would be where I have to pick up the responsibility and say, you know what? I was one of those people that didn't do a damn thing to stop this until it came to my door. And so that's part of what I'm trying to do is to say, don't wait. Don't keep sitting on the couch, because if your children are in a government school, because that's where they kidnapped my son from the second time, we filed a document saying, we signed this contract with you under clear definition of coercion and duress, and we are not going to be calling in on our child and letting you know, he went to the bathroom 4 times today, we left and went to Target, I took him to school, I brought him back, all this on and on and on. We filed a document saying, look, we will take care of this, we will figure this thing out as far as what we owe really, truly to clean this stuff up. And I kind of got distracted on that. But we had asked them for detailed accounting. To this day, they have refused to provide it. When you're dealing with the courts and with law enforcement, they are above the law, and they don't have to produce any kind of detailed accounting that you and I would have to do. If we were trying to send a bill to somebody for cleanup, we would have to itemize it. We would have to document, this is what it actually cost us. This is how many man-hours it actually took. When you're the city private corporation or the private police department that is basically employees of the city corporation, they do not have to do any such thing. And they never have, to this day, produced a single piece of paper showing a canceled check, a receipt, for who was paid what, when, where, why, and how. They don't have to. In fact, they ended up switching our, we had demanded to have a hearing where we demanded that they have to produce this. And Zachary's attorney, without informing us, they changed it to a stipulation hearing. And a stipulation hearing, you cannot appeal. But she never told us that it was going to be a stipulation hearing. So they come out and they produce this document that the probation officer had drawn up that had a little graph that he had made, generated on a computer screen. And what is so hilarious is the amount of money that they wanted us to pay, which was right under $15,000 to basically, most of what my son did, like I said, was washable. But this wasn't stopping them from what their real object is, and that's money. It's banking. It's court banking. They produced this document that we refer to as the golden egg because these people are so silly and so foolish and they believe themselves to be so invincible and above the law. They produced this graph that the numbers, the math, came out right. However, the ding-dongs forgot to put any of the arrest dates on there, not even 3/14, his initial arrest that brought us into this living hell. They end the dates of his so-called crimes on February 19, which was almost 30 days prior to them ever having arrested him the first time. So this is just an example of how sloppy and ridiculous they are, but how they can get away with it. It doesn't have to meet any kind of letter of the law criteria. They can produce a graph that says you owe $15,000 and make up the dates that supposedly this child was out doing his naughty behavior, but not include any of the pertinent dates to which we're in court arguing about currently. So that's just one example of what has gone on.
I've gotten into arguments with people about who are actually in favor of a police state. terrorizing, NSA spying and stuff, and they always say, well, if you're not doing anything wrong, then you don't have anything to worry about. What do you say to those people? Because you weren't doing anything wrong,
Saying you're living a lie and you are allowing a militarized police state to come up around you like a virus and a fungus. And thinking that you sitting inside your house doing nothing isn't going to ever come to your door, and they're not going to make up some charges against you because they've got to keep commerce rolling down there at the court, and apparently there are not enough real criminals anymore to get that done. So now they are making us, quote unquote, into criminals when we haven't even really broken any of their laws. And we haven't.
That's why they make laws, too, so people can, quote-unquote, break them. They make stupid laws. Oh, you broke a law, but it's like you walked on the grass. Oh, well, that was illegal. That was the law. You need to go to jail. You know what I mean? They,
And where's the victim? Where's the crime? I mean, we're so far from anything that makes sense that this code and statute stuff has literally taken over our lives like a virus. And we've got to kill it. We've got to kill it, or what our children are facing in the future, not to mention our children's children, is something that I have a really hard time even looking it in the face, yet I have to, because it's what motivates me to keep on exposing this sham of a system for what it is. In a nutshell, because we fought back, we countersued these people, and we were doing it pro se without one of their officers of the court, a lawyer. They decided that we were, quote unquote, sovereign citizens. We had never heard that term before. It's an oxymoron of epic proportion, in my opinion. You're just as likely to be an atheist Christian or a virgin whore as you are to be a sovereign citizen. Those two words don't go in the same sentence. You're either sovereign or you are a citizen. You cannot be both. So, because we were fighting them pro se without one of their officers of the court, we started to be harassed and tortured by MPD and by Riverside County Sheriff. They would follow us around. They would show up at restaurants and just lean up against the wall and stare at us the entire time we ate. They came into our home. They broke into our car. They hovered a helicopter over our roof so low that things fell off the walls. And they did that for about 3 minutes straight. It's just been an unbelievable nightmare. They did not arrest my husband until November 1 of 2013, which was 7 full months after the home invasion crime. And they did it in retaliation because we attempted to take out restraining orders against some of these officers that were following us around town and torturing and abusing our family.
Shouldn't they be out, catching criminals? They have a lot of time on their hands, don't they?
I don't think there's enough of them in bedroom community Marietta that touts itself as the second safest city per capita in the United States of America on the one hand, and then on the other hand, they brag that they have this militarized police department, and we're one of the communities in suburban America that now has a military tank as part of its SWAT team.
Do you think it's like a beta test or something? Because why does that even need it? That just seems so weird.
They're strategically placing these vehicles in police departments all across the nation. And, you want to get people accusing me of being a tinfoil hat-wearing conspiracy theorist, we could go there, as to what I think is really going on with that.
Well, hold on one second. I want to go there because I met a guy a month ago who had he worked for, this is LAPD, worked for the LAPD police department, and he didn't finish his training. He was in training, and I guess he decided to be an artist. But he was telling me as soon as Amazon gets that law cleared where they can fly their products with the drones, he says LAPD already has hundreds of them locked up ready to go.
This does not surprise me.
Yeah, it's It's very scary. Do you have any support from the community? You know, where you are, other people outside of your family?
We don't have a lot of community support. We have yet to have a single member of law enforcement in Riverside County from any agency whatsoever to stand up against the other officers in their departments and say, you know, this was really not right, what was done to this family. Yeah. This is overkill to send a SWAT team out for a 70-pound 12-year-old who was asleep in his bed, you know, asleep. They literally had to wake him up from a dead sleep, to which they traumatized him beyond, I don't know. You know, I've been a psychiatric nurse for 20 years. I did child psych for 8.5 of those. Little did I know some of those skills would have to come in handy with my own son, who had never sleptwalked before, never had any kind of these kind of issues before. We had to move his bed into our room, his mattress at the end of our bed. He was in our room for about 8 months. He couldn't sleep if Mom and Dad weren't close by. And, you know, God bless him that he still felt some security from Mom and Dad, because let me tell you guys, I'm powerless to stop them. I have had CPS in my house 3 times now because Marietta PD reported us as severe neglect. Let me tell you, that really incensed me, and I talked about that on Jan's show, The Nightmare in Marietta, in that I've been a part of a SART team. I have dealt with these severely abused kids that come in and they've been raped, sodomized, burned with cigarettes, burned with irons, beaten with hangers, you know, hideous things, hideous. And for this police department to be so blatantly ignorant and cruel and mean that they would report my family as severe neglectors, severe. And, you know, all of the reports that these CPS agents have written have been glowing. Even the stupid police, their own reports say, quote, unquote, this was not a typical drug house. You think? Because it's not a drug house. Right. You wouldn't find high fructose corn syrup in my pantry, let alone meth or something that would be damaging to any of us. That is not what we're into. So the whole thing is so made up, and anybody who knows us knows it's made up and it's not legitimate, yet this county, this city, and this state refuse to drop these charges against my husband. And after the preliminary hearing where he, the witness they put on the stand, this investigator Medina, which they must have pulled out of bed that morning and said, oh no, the Dortches won't take one of our plea bargains, so we're going to have to actually have a preliminary hearing, and none of us are ready. But get up there on the stand and do the best you can. Well, I'm telling you what, I had been praying for days that that man would be possessed by divine truth serum. And you know what? God answered my prayer, because that man said so much stuff on the stand that incriminates this county and incriminates himself. It was epic, absolutely epic. But this did not stop this Deputy District Attorney, Jade Holder, from leveling on my husband at the arraignment for the preliminary. Now, not only is my husband being charged with manufacturing a controlled substance, which is absolute crap, now he's been added the charges trafficking that drug, where and to whom, I don't know. If they have something, they've made it up out of thin air like they did their graph on that other document, and they have charged him with possession of a controlled substance, and they have added that child endangerment. So we've been waiting for CPS to knock on the door again and come on in and decide, are they going to try to steal my child for some imaginary reason? Red Ice, I haven't listened to the interview yet, but I got a heads up from a friend that there is a whistleblower from CPS who is the latest interview on Red Ice Creations, and apparently around minute 46 to 48, he talks about how CPS is targeting parents in states that have, quote-unquote, legalized marijuana, and they are looking at parents who have gotten these cards, and they are using it as an in to come in And if they can make up anything substantial enough, they are sucking kids into their child protective system, which is private, it is corporate, it is not governmental anymore, although the government is a corporation too, and I know you ladies both understand that. They are using this as an excuse to pull kids into the child protective services arena to generate money, profit.
Yeah. Because that's a whole other show about how creepy CPS is.
Yeah, I know. But all these agencies that you're mentioning, I mean, they don't exist unless they have a reason to exist. So they have to take kids away in order to prove that they're necessary. And the same is true with the police department. And you know, the irony of Murrieta being this safe town, but yet the danger is from their police, from the police department. So I mean, they're the ones that are terrorizing people.
So sickly ironic with this. They are accusing us of child endangerment, yet my children have never felt more unsafe since law enforcement in this county has invaded our lives for nothing. My little boy made a mistake. Yes, he was writing on inanimate objects, nothing that couldn't be repaired with a coat of paint. He didn't kill anyone, not even an animal, not even a butterfly, not even a frickin' ladybug. This is corporate, paid for, tax maintenance, city property. It was property. It was fences, it was walls, it was rocks, it was metal, pieces of metal, and a plastic slide. We are not talking a real life sentence of a crime here, guys. I did things growing up that were far worse than that. I guess I would have rotted away in a juvenile hall cell had they caught me back when I was 12 and 13 with some of the crap I was doing and my sister was doing. I mean, it's absurd. Yeah. We apparently live in Fallujah now, where the tanks can just roll down the American streets, and we don't even ask any questions anymore. You are guilty until you can prove yourself innocent, and good luck. That's where we are now. So I wanted to let your listeners know that haven't probably listened to these other interviews. They, quote-unquote, the officer that released Zach to us during his first arrest and incarceration in juvie jail for 4 days, because they, quote-unquote, tried to teach him a lesson by putting him in a dirty room that had a cross in blood on the wall. The drinking fountain was malfunctioning. My child was completely dehydrated by the time I got him back. My child was vaccine injured at 15 months old and almost died from encephalitis from getting 4 shots in one day, 3 of them combos, so he got 9 shots in one day, and he would have been a SIDS death had my ER nurse sister not been the one taking care of him the day that he went comatose. My mom would have just thought he felt bad, would have laid him down in the bed to rest, and I guarantee you my son would have been a quote-unquote SIDS case. But my sister is sitting there holding him, realizing if I were at work, I would be charting this baby as lethargic, and that is a key word in pediatric ER nursing that sets basically a code in place. A 15-month-old is not supposed to be comatose and unable to be aroused. And unless she was doing a hard sternal rub on him, he wouldn't even flutter his eyelids. So while he was in juvenile hall, here comes the nursing department with needles in hand. They don't tell him what's in the needles. He's an adult. We've already been told he's an adult. But, they're not giving him the opportunity to consent, let's say. Well, that poor baby, talk about trauma. He started backing up against the wall, and he says, no, those can kill me. Those can kill me. You've got to call my mom. I've almost died from vaccines. I don't know what is in those syringes, but you cannot give that to me. Well, thank God the nurse called me, and I said, look, I'm a nurse too, and let me tell you, I know what your oath is, and your oath is to advocate for my son while he's in there. And if you so much as give him a Tylenol, I will see you not have a nursing license in the future. So do not touch my child with a needle or even a Tylenol. You leave him alone, or you are in danger of literally killing him.
What were the vaccines for? What did they say they were vaccinating him for?
I tell you, it was TB, which now is mixed with whooping cough. There are no single vaccines anymore. They're all combos, and they never tell you that. Even tetanus now is mixed with other things.
DP.
They all are.
Right? With the DTP? Or DTaP, yeah. Oh my God. Kim, I just want to say you're a wonderful, beautiful mother. You're giving your children and your family a tremendous gift by sticking up for yourself. And I'm so sorry that you and your family are going through this. It's a nightmare.
It is.
But I think that you're sticking. Huh?
It absolutely is. There are mornings that my husband and I wake up, and as the reality of our life descends back on your conscious mind after a night of sleep, you just look at each other and you just go, yep, we have to keep on fighting this fight that we didn't ask to come to our door, but it's here, and there's no way that I'm going to have my kids think that I gave up fighting for them. I don't care how many times the state says they're our mom and dad. They're not. My Heavenly Father created me, created my children, created all of us, and I do not acknowledge their false, counterfeit God syndrome. I refuse. And so we are enemies of the state in that sense, and they don't want people who are articulate, who understand what's really going on. We are very dangerous to them. Just for the mere fact of speaking the truth into existence and trying to help other people to protect their families. Because I'm telling you, if it could happen to us who have never harmed another soul in our lives, we completely respect our bodies as the holy dwelling place of the Holy Spirit. Our body is the one and only true church, and I don't recognize the church of government or any corporate church on this planet anymore, ever again. I will not. And they don't want the masses waking up to that, because it is how they keep us under mind control. It is how they keep us compliant. And I'm not going to tell you I'm not human, and I haven't been terrified, and I haven't been very, very afraid through this, because I've had it proven to me 3 times now. They can and will come and take my son whenever they want to. And then it would just be a whole nother trying to gain resources to fight this monster. And they've destroyed us. You know, we were in the process of trying to get a modification on our home of 15 years when this was going down. We know that, you know, all of the banking institutions and all of these institutions are linked. So we now know that part of our reason that we were having such a hard time with some of these processes that other people seem to get through with no problem whatsoever has to be that we were already on their so-called NSA watch list. You know, you start going up the check mark list. You don't vaccinate your kids, you get a check mark. You don't participate in, you know, all of the pediatric visits, you get a check mark. You throw the TV out of your house so you're not under that mind control, you get a check mark. You're listening to alternative stuff on the radio.
You even eat healthy. You even eat healthy.
And answers, you get a check. I was divorcing myself from allopathic medicine because I watched it almost kill my son, and I hadn't questioned a single solitary thing up until that day when I'm watching them do spinal taps on my son, you know, sticking tubes in every orifice of his body, taking him for MRI, blood cultures, on and on and on and on and on and on it went. And it boiled down to my pediatrician stood in the nurse's station at Loma Linda Pediatric ER and looked at me and said, "Your son has had a reaction to vaccines. We don't know which one. He can never have another one as long as he lives." And for this Western nurse to hear that my consenting to him getting those shots that day had almost killed my boy was about more than this mama could handle. And it turned me on my head, and I started to research the other side of the coin that I didn't even know existed. I had bought into the allopathic lie, complete hook, line, and sinker. While you hold your dying child and you have a pediatrician and MD tell you your child had a reaction to vaccines, it rocked my world. And as I started uncovering one lie after another, that's why I went back to nutritional therapy school. I went into nursing to help people, and what I realized was I was just a pawn on their checkerboard floor, just passing out synthetic pharmaceuticals that were helping no one. And it changed my whole life, and now I'm a nutritional therapist who would desperately like to focus on building that business, but I've been forced to get an honorary law degree and advocate for my family through a nightmare where they would like to jail my husband for a non-existent crime. There is no victim. We have never received a single official notice in the mail from this court. They do not want to deal with us because they know that we understand the difference between our corporate person and our divine person. So they just try to avoid getting anything regarding us and our case on the actual record. It's all done in judges' chambers, some little room off of the hallway at the court. It's all been, they've attempted to do it by backdoor kind of deals.
Wow. And you know what's so upsetting about all this is that you guys who didn't do anything have had to defend yourself as if you're guilty, but you're not. You know, you have to sit there and point out to people, you know, we've never done anything, we're a decent family, and this and that, which should be apparent. They're the ones that need to be defending themselves because they're the ones that have had inappropriate actions. I mean, inappropriate's not even a strong enough word for it. And, I mean, criminal and diabolical, immoral. And so, but you're the one who has to sit there and defend yourself. And your husband, who didn't do anything, wasn't trafficking any drugs or doing anything. He's a doctor. And he wasn't, you know, he's an optometrist. He helps people's vision, and that's all he does. And so it's really, really sad. And going back to what Virstyne said about how people will say, well, if you're not doing anything, you don't have anything to worry about.
Absolutely.
That's such the biggest lie ever told. And, you know, we would hope that that was the case, but it's not. And you cannot trust these fraudulent
This is the problem
systems.
when you make courts for profit, when you make the jails for profit, when you make the police department for profit. It's a private corporation. They're traded on Dun & Bradstreet. You can investigate it yourself. April, we've learned a lot of this from Clint Richardson and people who haven't studied Corporation Nation by Clint and gotten up to speed on what is going on with this, you know, corporatization of our nation and the world. You can't understand what's really going on and how we are being played in this thing. And literally, they are just using us as farm animals on the farm, and they're harvesting us. And if they can't find a legitimate reason to attach to your corporate person to run it through this nightmare of a system, they will make up a reason. And good luck trying to prove them wrong, because we're 21 months into this, and we still haven't been able to do that. And they would really like to jail my husband for an undetermined amount of time when we don't have a victim and we don't have a crime. There is not an actual living being representing the people of California. No one has ever come forward to say my husband has ever harmed them in any way or was doing anything illegal. But like I started to say, there are no horses down there pulling carts. They're just running around on their own demonic volition. They do not have to prove probable cause to come into a home. They just leave you in the fray of this nightmare they've created around you. And if you don't have the money, the intellect, and the wherewithal to fight back, most people just roll over and they end up serving some time in jail for a while. And they get a fee from the federal government for every body they put in a bed. It's like a hospital bed quota for people who are in the medical profession. It's no different. They're either running you through one system where they're cashing in on these low legal codes and statutes, or they try to run you through the ICD 9 and 10, through the medical establishment to cash in on you. And when you're in jail, you have no say-so over anything, so they run you through both. They have all of those inmates on psych meds and hypertensive meds and cholesterol meds and any kind of meds they can cha-ching you through the ICD-9 reimbursement system along with the legal code system. And it is just a money-making cash cow.
Yeah, because they get paid extra for every time they give out those prescriptions.
So I know we have like a few more minutes here, and I don't know, how much more detail you want to get into what's going on currently, but we have a simultaneous civil suit at the federal level where we are suing some of these specific officers who used excessive force and have violated our constitutional rights over and over again. But the Attorney General and the firm that's representing the police officers, they want the civil case to be put on hold while the criminal case runs its course. And to me, that is so back-assward, I cannot even understand it. We filed our suit against them in May of 2013, and they did not even charge my husband with criminal charges officially until January 15 of 2014. So our civil case far supersedes their made-up criminal case. Yet, these idiots want us to have to go through this entire criminal process without them having to admit they never had probable cause. They have now destroyed this lab they set up because it doesn't support what they charged my husband with. They set up a makeshift meth lab, and they never found any meth in the house. However, the one and only plea bargain that we were offered through a defense attorney who was just as bad or worse than Sharon Cosgrove, named Michael Levinson, they wanted my husband to plead guilty to a misdemeanor of possession of methamphetamine, which has never entered into anything. My husband was never accused of making meth. He was never accused of being in possession of it. But because this is what they get federal grant kickback money from, this is what they wanted him to do. And he refused to. And that deputy district attorney that made that offer, he has now been fired. He no longer has a job. He's disappeared. One of the investigators, Investigator Pilati, who had 21 years with Riverside County Sheriff's Office, he is now a quote-unquote former investigator. He's disappeared. The chief of police in Marietta, Mike Bray, was moved to Ventura County. Sherry Carter, who was the elected clerk, she has been whisked off to L.A. County, and she's a local Riverside girl. I can't even tell you how many people have disappeared that have touched our case. And we know that Investigator Pilati has Brady information which could exonerate my husband, and Deputy District Attorney Jade Holder refuses to turn it over. We have been requesting it for months, and she refuses to turn it over, and this crooked judge that we keep going before, Judge McConaughey and Judge Davis, they both are in cahoots with this whole system, and now Judge McConaughey has quote-unquote fast-tracked my husband's case, and they want to hold a trial on my husband between Christmas and New Year's of this year. And they haven't even turned over the basics of discovery yet. And this was what Judge McConaughey said when our attorney, Melody Kramer, who is a saint, said, "Sir, we can't possibly be ready for a trial on between Christmas and New Year's. The DA's office has still not even turned over the basics of discovery." And he looked at our attorney and he says, "I don't care. We're setting the date for this date. Be ready." So there you go. So we have now officially made a motion for them to turn this stuff over with a 15-day limit to turn it over. And about 8 of those days have already gone by, and we have received not one single document yet.
Wow. And so tell us about this attorney you just mentioned that's a saint. So this was the one, like, sort of silver lining that you got this attorney to find your case and sort of and take it on and try and help you guys, right?
This is a civil rights attorney who, she considers herself a libertarian. She believes in the Constitution and at least holding these people to constitutional law. and they hate her,
Right.
and they are cruel to her. She's from San Diego County, so she's not a local yokel. She's not part of their old boys club. And let me tell you, they don't like it that she's coming in there, and she filed a motion to disqualify the entire DA's office. And they allowed this same Judge Davis, who has been so cruel to my husband when he was representing himself pro se on his own. My husband had filed what's called a demeanor, which is an attempt to make them face the fact that they're putting the cart before the horse, and they're not producing the so-called probable cause that allowed them to get into our house on false pretenses to begin with. They want to ignore that. They want to ignore that they have never produced any probable cause that Zach committed another crime. So everything that they manufactured that day in our home is fruit from a poisonous tree. They should never have been granted that search warrant for our home in the first place. I mean, if that's what our country has come to, that Judge Elaine Johnson, will just grant a broad sweeping search warrant for a 70-pound 12-year-old, let me tell you guys, that is not America. That is full-on cultural, Marxist, fascist, socialist. I don't care what name you want to give to it. That's
the Hunger Games.
That's the Gestapo showing up at your house. That's the KGB.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it is, absolutely. And you know, and as you've been touching on a little bit of these things, them coming into your house and them arresting your son, but I mean, there's so much more to it that you could get into about the way they've just basically been torturing you guys. And, you know, unfortunately we're running out of time here, but I want to just remind everybody that we've talked about you guys on our show before, and hopefully they can go to our website and there's a link on there to how to help you guys, because I know that you do have this lawyer and you are trying. I mean, I know that you can't even really fathom, people out there, how much not only emotional, physical stress this has put on this family, but also financial, tremendous financial stress, because you guys have to defend yourself and you have to pay these people to help you defend yourself for doing nothing, for just being regular people.
The defense attorney that we hired, and we interviewed a lot of them, you guys. I'm telling you, it's such a nightmare to try to find a good attorney, and they will just look so sunny and beautiful before you give them any money, and then they turn into monsters. And that was exactly what happened with the defense attorney we hired. He required $15,000 cash, and once we paid it to him, he never filed a single motion on our behalf, and he showed up to court 2 times over 2 hours late, and the judge in one of those times threatened to find my husband in contempt of court and threatened to put him in an orange jumpsuit in jail if the defense attorney was late again. So the civil rights attorney was watching what was going on. She finally said, okay, I haven't done a defense case in California in a very long time, but I couldn't possibly do worse than this defense attorney is doing for you. So we fired him, and we're going to try to take him to arbitration to get back part of our $15,000, because he proved that he did any work for us. He never filed a motion. He never did anything except try to get my husband to perjure himself and say he was in possession of me.
Oh, that's just illegal. I mean, that's just crazy. And what a piece of work this guy is. So we hope that we can maybe help you guys collect some of this money back, or at least help you pay.
Anybody who can even afford $5, it adds up. We do have a PayPal account. It's Dortch Family Legal Defense Fund, and it's through my husband's david.dortch@gmail.com. And I have started a blog, which I tell you, life has been so insane. I'm not being able to babysit it to the point that I would like to, but there is basic information there and a link to the donation site, and that is kimdortch.wordpress.com. And we're just trying to get our story out there on as many venues as we can. It hasn't gone very mainstream yet, and I'm trusting God that there's a reason for that, and that will happen in perfect, right, divine timing, because being on shows like yours where I'm not censored, where I don't have to walk on eggshells trying to protect people who don't understand we live in a corporatocracy. I've done one kind of mainstream show, and they included an attorney on there, and let me tell you, it didn't go anywhere. And that show had over 1 million listeners, and we didn't get one single donation. So the mainstream is not possibly quite ready for all of the aspects of this. People want to believe that this is rah-rah USA and that we are not encroaching on a full-on militarized police state where it could look like Ferguson all over. So, I don't know, we got to wake up, and those of us who are awake, we have got to join forces, and we have got to start educating, teaching, and uniting together, because this is happening no less than 100 times a day across America, that SWAT is invading private American homes on made-up, some real reason, some not. We know they've invaded homes that wasn't even the right address. They're killing people. They're killing people's dogs. They're killing their children. They're killing their cats. They're off the hook. They're absolutely out of control. They're on steroids. They are ex-military. They have post-traumatic stress disorder themselves. And they're perfect order followers that are questioning nothing. Most of them they're not taking their oath to the Constitution seriously, and they cannot wait to play with their militarized toys against their own American brothers and sisters.
Yeah, that's a fact, and I know that it's hard for people to take that. And those that are awake and are listening to the alternative media may understand what you're saying, but I can see where the mainstream is just not quite getting that yet.
They will. That's when they'll get it, you know.
They will. Yeah. Exactly. Once they realize that this is, this invasion is occurring and that everybody's going to have, a gold star and have to wear it around. So again, if anybody who's listening, please help Kim and her family and the Dortch Family Legal Defense Fund, david.dortch@gmail.com, and you can also link it up at our website, truthertalk.com. And if you want more of this story, because it does get longer, and she did do a longer, you and Dave both were on Red Ice Creation and on Gnostic Media, so you guys can check those out, and several others, so we'll link up as many as we can. And we thank you so much, Kim, for being on the show. You're a friend of mine and have been for a while before this whole thing happened.
Thank you, Kim.
You're one of my soul sisters that God has sent me to make it through this situation, and I am grateful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm grateful to know you, and such a brave person, and as Virstyne said, pointed out, just a beautiful mother who's, standing up for your family, just a mama bear, and just, what else can you do? And, you didn't roll over, even though, it's scary when they have your child in their clutches like that, and you do anything to protect your child. And and as you're pointing out with, Zach, this poor kid, he's been vaccine damaged, he was bullied, and then now of course he's got PTSD. Where does he think that he's going to turn to? If nobody, and so he's just looking to you and your husband, because you guys are the only ones right now that he trusts, probably. And that's beautiful that he at least does have the two of you to take care of him, and, and so please help take care of this family, pray for them, and send any kind of donation that you can. Dortch Family Legal Defense Fund, david.dortch@gmail.com. And so thanks again, Kim. We love you a lot, and we really appreciate you sharing. So everybody stay tuned. We'll be back in a bit, and Virstyne and I will close out the show. So, Kim, please enjoy the rest of your day if you can. And we'll be in touch.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Talk soon.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Hello, thanks for having me on your radio. Even though we're not from a famous rock and roll band, if we were, even though we sound a little like we are, we'd definitely wear a Conspiracy Realist t-shirt, because they're gear, aren't they? Oh yeah, they're really gear. I want to write a song about them. Conspiracy Realist t-shirts at truthertees.com. I gotta think of the middle 8. Shop.truthertees.com. What does that mean? It's the internet. What's that? I don't know. It's a net. It's between things. Shop.truthertees.com. What's that? It's where you get conspiracy realist t-shirts. Oh, yeah.
Hey there, welcome back. Thanks for listening to Truth or Talk. And hey, Virstyne.
Hey.
We just talked to Kim.
I'm like, it wasn't funny. I'm like laughing, but coming back from break, it was really devastating. I think we had a break before we started recording, and I was saying that I got really upset when she was talking about like how the policeman basically just, came and took their child, and, her husband was standing there, and he just felt powerless. And I just got so upset of the emasculation, that we were just talking about, like, how maybe it would have been different if their children weren't involved. But when your children are involved, you're very vulnerable, and you want to protect them. And I guess in that situation, protecting them meant going along with what the policemen have to say, because they fucking have weapons. Right. And they have the quote-unquote law on their side. If they're, you know what I mean, they're more, so you just kind of have to do what they say. And I just got, so I was in the verge of tears a little bit. I was really upset.
Me too.
And I just can't imagine what that must be like. I'm not a parent, but I got upset just thinking about, like, just not having that ability to protect your child in the face of tyranny. And it was very horrifying and infuriating. And one thing I wanted to thank her for, I asked her a question, and I was a little nervous because I was like, I don't know if this would be offensive to her, but I really wanted to ask her, because my experience with police brutality, and I'm talking about friends and family of mine that have been abused by the police, has always been racial. So I know that they've been called racial slurs or been accused of something they didn't do, even though they had no evidence because they were black. And I asked her, and I thought it was really interesting that I don't know if she went into the whole details in this interview, but I know Red Ice and I think Gnostic Media interview, she talked about there was another boy that was apprehended with her son. And he happened to be like a person of color. I think he was like black Hispanic. And once they found out his father was in the military, they just treated him like royalty. And I thought, this is an interesting, concept that like race trumps. I mean, I'm sorry, not race. That the brother being a part of the military / police brotherhood, quote unquote, trumps race.
Right.
And I didn't know all of the details of her story. I've talked to her, I think we talked to her a little bit before, and I knew a little bit about it, but just the little that I told people, I've told quite a few people. And the black people they're always enraged, but they're never, like, surprised.
Right.
I found that the whites that I've told were enraged, but they were surprised. They were, like, shocked. They were like, are you sure? Like, he didn't do anything else? And I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
But I was just saying, I wanted to bring the race thing up, because I think it is very important that people think about this, because I think that there's just this kind of mindset where I think, people may hear about racial situations and police brutality and bullying, but they kind of turn the other cheek because they think, well, I'm not black or Hispanic, I'm fine, and they think that it won't happen to them, or they think that people may be blowing it out of proportion because, they're not racist, they don't think like that, so how could somebody else, think like that? And I really commend her, and I appreciate her for saying that, that maybe she did in the past too, just kind of look the other way, and she's apologized, and she's taken responsibility for it. So, that's a strong woman. She's a great mom, a strong woman, and I just, I respect her a lot, and my prayers and thoughts go out to her and her family. I want to punch them.
I know.
I hate them so much.
I know, and it's so evil, and it's just like, it's so 1984 Orwellian. Like, I know we say that, but it's like, what is the irony of this town being considered the second safest in the in the whole country? And yet, the police there are terrorizing these people, so they obviously don't consider that to be crime.
Yeah.
Because if you looked at what was happening to this family and the level of crime that is, then how would anyone feel safe in that town? It's like being around these cops and that they just are running rogue. They just don't even have anything over them. They can just do whatever the hell they want. And And why? It's like it's obviously so personal against these people, but why? Like, what did they do that you? And the answer is nothing, really. I mean, it's just their own bullshit. It's their own, like, just not caring and just not being in any kind of or being threatened by this family because they do take care of themselves, and they are, doing their best to be free people in this unfree world, this unfree country. And so, but they're doing their best, they're kind of, to be off the main grid, and that's obviously a problem for these cops, and they're threatened by that. And then, but they hit it's so below the belt to take on the children and this little boy, that's just, that's where I just... And
they're going to vaccinate him for fucking what?
Thank God he had the thought to, because in that situation, this boy, he's 12 years old, I have an 11-year-old son. Avery, he's very smart and he's very articulate, but he's a little boy. He wouldn't know what to do. He would be completely, lost in having not a clue and of how to respond to that or how to, fortunately my son does know that vaccines are dangerous, and he's critical thinking enough to kind of figure it out. He told me,
I just want to say, but who knows what he would have done in that situation where he's in a dark room and he's like bullied and, God forbid,
Right. And she didn't even, talk about the way that her son was being taunted, because he's this little boy and he's small for his age. He's only 12 years old, and he's being put in a holding cell with grown men and men 17, 18 years old, who are much bigger and, have beards and, and they're just like taunting him and threatening him and things like that. He's in jail for 7 days. That must have felt so horrifying, like such an eternity.
On the adult, that would be horrifying, I'd be scared.
I'm scared just thinking about it. Like, just thinking about it, that would be horrifying.
And too, I just want to say this, as a child, so you don't really have, your concept of time is different, Yeah. It seemed even longer than it was for him.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I know, that's what I'm saying. It probably felt like an eternity, and it was just sort of that he was, he probably had no idea, like, when he was going to get out. He's 12, so he would have maybe some concept of time. He has a concept of time, but not, like you say, it's different than an adult. My newborn baby, like, if I leave the room, she doesn't know if I'm ever going to come back again,
Yeah.
Like, so she has no concept of time because she doesn't understand that yet. But even at 12, like, you're still kind of not grasping that. So he might have felt at certain points like he didn't know if he was ever going to get out. Am I ever going to see my parents again? Am I ever going to, all those thoughts must have been running through his head. I can't imagine how he was able to sleep while he was there. And, and then having to, at least he has these parents that are very, very strong and willing to stand up for him to the point that he at least feels safe in their presence, because I can't imagine ever feeling safe again.
Yeah.
Because, he's a kid that's been bullied and he's been vaccine damaged, so he's had some health problems, and he's had, and almost died when he was an infant as a result of it. And, it's just like, let this kid catch a break, It's just, that's where I was just wanting to just bawl, because it hurts me a lot as a parent. It terrifies me. And, she's a friend of mine, so when she first told me that this was going on, I was mortified. I was like, I just had I felt so helpless to do anything to support her and help her through, and her family through this. And it's awful. And I hope that people really that are listening can kind of understand the gravity of the situation. And like she said, just give them like $5 because it adds up, and they're in dire straits right now. They're having to, defend. Her husband has an optometry practice, and she didn't mention this, and I thought this was really great when I heard this on, I can't remember if it was on Jan's show or on Red Ice's show, where she was talking about how, or he might have been talking about how they haven't lost a single patient. So that's at least something I think that's promising.
Yeah.
Where they've had problems is where they haven't gained any new patients, apparently, because this story has been propagandized, and obviously they're, just completely falsifying anything by saying that this guy's running a meth lab. It's just ridiculous. But I know it's like laughable if it weren't so horrifying. It's like, wow. But anyway, so that's just absurd, and of course that's not what's going on in any way, shape, or form. But that's what's been propagandized. So if you're going to look for an optometrist and you see that this guy's in the paper, you're not going to go there. You're going to be like, no. And so, I mean, I just don't even, because you wouldn't know whether it was true or not if you don't know who this person is. And so, and you don't know what's the true story, and especially if you're not awake and aware that this stuff goes on. And so it's hurt them financially, and not only that they haven't been able to build new business, and but it's promising that the people at least who've gone there haven't left. So they all know it's bullshit. So anyone who knows this family knows it's bullshit. Yeah. It's just those who don't know that, might not understand. And, so it's really, so in that regard it's somewhat promising, and then it's somewhat promising that at least they found this lawyer who is taken on their case and is a libertarian and at the very least believes in constitutional rights. I mean, we've talked, like she mentioned, how we've had Clint on our show, and we talk about natural law, common law, the laws under God, which supersede the Constitution. But at least but that's at least like a framework that can kind of protect you, to a certain extent. It's certainly more than these cops who are just like running rogue on whatever laws it seems like they're not even following any of their own laws. Like, I don't even know how they have the right to go into this people's house.
They're not.
And start looking,
they don't.
And start looking in their lingerie drawers and, and looking through their pantries and looking through their computers and confiscating computers. For what? Because a kid scribbled on a wall? Like, who fucking cares?
And he confessed already. It's just...
And he confessed. And then, I think, too, on a deeper level, it says something about our society as a whole that, this community is going to rat this kid out versus just talking to the parents. Okay. Because somebody called on him, obviously, the first time they caught him. And...
Yeah.
Because when I was a kid, I was much younger than Zach. I was like 6 or 7 years old, and I had this girlfriend who used to, she was one of those who like always gets you into trouble, and but she was my best friend, but she would always get me into trouble when I hung out with her, and she just like encouraged me to do naughty things, and we threw mud. It had just rained, and there was mud in the sewer, like in the gutter, and we picked it up and we threw it on this guy's driveway, or on his garage door for no reason, just because we were kids. Like, we weren't tagging or trying to be, we just did it. We had, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was for nothing. And, cause when you're a little kid, you do shit for no reason. And then, so, we just were doing it, and this guy, he knew who our parents were. He came to the house. He said, these two little girls, threw it, and our job, what we had to do was take a bucket of soap and water and clean his garage. So what happened to a society where that was it, and then it was done?
Oh, it's just a society that doesn't want to take responsibility for fucking anything.
Right, so they just call Popo, and it's like, that's where I turned it on their community as well, for not standing by them and not saying this, and if this little boy was doing something naughty and not just going to them and saying, this is what he's doing, instead turning to the police. Everybody thinks that these friggin' authority figures in there, and they're not who they say they are. And CPS and these people are not who they say they are. So they're not here to protect you. They're here to, take your rights away, and they need to to conjure up these problems in order to prove their existence. And so, things like that. I mean, and the same friend, by the way, she also, the only time I'd ever taken anything out of a store, I know most kids like steal, but I was a pretty good, I was naughty, I had my moments, certainly probably just as naughtier than her son, but same friend though, and she used to shoplift all the time, right? And she took some greeting cards out of a store, Why? I don't know. Like, again, it was like shit for no reason. Like, why greeting cards? Like, who cares?
Yeah, she just because she could probably, you know. But yeah.
Yeah, just to see if she could get away with it. So, she did it, but she put it into my bag, into my, like, school bag.
Oh, did you know that she did?
I knew that she did, yeah.
Okay.
So I knew that she did, but I was, you know, and I just didn't say anything. I just kind of, like, probably smirked and smiled. I was nervous, but I never stole anything on my own. But that was the one time that, you know, I kind of did, or I was an accomplice. And I went home that day, and my parents found the cards, and they were like, how'd you get these? And then, so I was like, you know, and I had to explain to them what happened. And I remember my dad yelling, he was so mad. And then they made me go back to the store and just confess to the guy, to the shop owner. And the shop owner, I mean, I was like 6 or 7. He must have thought that I was such a cute little kid. Like, he actually, like, gave me a hug and, like, gave me a lollipop, you know, for free. And so it was just such a different time, you know. It was just such a different society that took care of its children. It didn't, you know, and he didn't look at me as like a bad seed that was doing these horrible things because I did one naughty thing. I was an accomplice, you know, to shoplifting of his store. He was proud of me for having to come in and confess. And I think that, you know, we should be proud that Zach he did confess. He took responsibility, and that should have been the end of it.
Yeah, and he cleaned it up. That's it. Like,
right, exactly.
And then, you know, and then if he kept doing it, then you handle it accordingly. But I mean, still, even if he kept doing it, you don't fucking throw a boy in jail over, like, a little boy in jail. That's just ridiculous.
Oh, and then twice for the same thing, you know, and make him spend 7 days, pull him out of class. I'm sure that wasn't humiliating. Oh, that he had to have all these people, these cops come in when he's like sitting in class, and it must have been horrifying for all the kids around him were probably freaking out. Yeah. You know, I can't even imagine.
But you know what, too, like, on the flip side of that, I was such a geek that I never did anything like that, like stealing and shit, but I was terrified of my parents. I was terrified. So if I knew if I ever got caught doing like that, my parents would kill me. And that's what I thought. I thought my parents would kill me. You know, like, so I never, like, did anything like that. I mean, and it's just like, I mean, I had friends that would do stuff like that, but I would, you know, they weren't even judgmental of, you know what I mean? They still, even though they were really strict on me, they saw other people doing shit like that. They weren't like, I don't know, they weren't like judgmental, or they weren't like, you know, because my mom babysitted my other kids in the neighborhood too, and so we had a lot of children of different ages, even like, you know, up until I was 10, coming in and out that, you know, apartment or whatever. And we had a couple people that were mischievous, but even still, like, then, like, they would steal stuff or they do things, and my mom would, you know, she would talk to their parents about it. Or, you know what I mean? Like, she was, like you said, like, it was more of a community thing where people help each other, we counsel each other with their kids, and if there was a problem, you talk to the parents, and
exactly, you know, like, that's my point.
You help each other out because you know parenting is very hard, and you know that everybody's kid can be perfect, and you know that you have to teach them right from wrong. It's not like, you know,
right. I mean, the point is that it's not that you don't hold the child accountable for their action. You absolutely do. Yeah. It's just that you don't turn to these false authority figures to torture and terrify them. You know what I mean? You would just deal with it.
And part of it is
you take responsibility.
Well, yeah, even a few months ago, there was a family on top of me, and they were being really loud. So I went upstairs, and I was like, hey, man, could you keep it down? You guys are being really, because they were having a party. And I was like, hey, you know, we're trying to sleep. Could you keep it down? And they were so nice about it. Like, they didn't even realize that they were making noise, you know? And they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, like, you know, and I can tell that they made an attempt to, like, turn the music down and watch, you know, not stop jumping on the floor and stuff. But, you know, I try and do that as opposed to just calling the police on them.
Right.
You know, you talk to the people first. We don't talk to each other. We don't communicate with each other. You know? But
yeah, and
I probably part of the strategy, too, of, like, anyway.
Divide and
conquer, where you make people afraid of each other. Yeah. And it's funny because I was watching, I saw the third Hunger Games. Mm-hmm. Have you seen those movies?
I saw the first one.
So I'm watching it, and the whole time, I swear, I don't know why this would go through my head, But I was just like, wow, they wouldn't be able to do any of this torture or shit if they didn't have the police state to help them keep things in place.
Absolutely, yeah.
And
I'm
watching the people that are revolting, and they're killing the police, and I'm like, well, is that really going to solve the problem? Maybe it will for a minute, but it's a deeper problem, you know what I mean? Because in the end, if they still want to, if they win, they'll just get more people to be police and police the rest. So, I don't know, it's very, very interesting. It's very disturbing.
It is, and like as you point out, with you talk to your neighbor, you know, like I had that experience where a couple people would hear my son with autism, you know, making loud noises, and then leave notes, you know, on the door, and then one time call the police, you know, or they would just call the leasing office, the managers, but not even come to us.
Yeah. Like
not once. You know, and you live in an apartment building. It's like, what? You know, what, you just, not even one time? So that's how desensitized everybody is, and it's gotten out of control, so.
Yeah.
So, we're just about out of time here, or we are out of time, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the show. But, again, everybody check out our website and we have a link on there, Support the Dortch Family. You can go there and you can listen to the shows that she was talking about, or what they did right after the incident where her husband Dave was arrested. They were on Gnostic Media a couple of times, and so we have the links to those shows, and then the more recent shows that they've done on Red Eyes Creation, and also again on Gnostic Media. And there's been several others, but I don't know all the ones that they've been on because they're just now starting to kind of put this out there. Before they were, you know, kind of being a little more cautious and apprehensive, and now it's just kind of like, what are you going to do, you know? So hopefully you can go there, find out get more information about their story, and send them a donation. We'd really appreciate that. You did that for the holiday season rather than giving to a fake charity. Give to people who really need it. So, you know, let's not do that. No fake charities, no American Cancer Society or any other crap. Give to people really, truly, and it only takes like a couple of bucks. So, thank you, as always. Until next time, peace, truth, and love, y'all.
Peace, truth, love you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Aussie Skateboard, and listen to UCY.